me ask you about, I want to switch gears a little bit in greater Chicago, right? So, obviously being an advocate in Chicago, I know that's busy work. And I try to tell a lot of people I know, being from Illinois, being from Chicago, how much corruption is in Chicago and how many issues the greater city has. So, most recently, I just want to know what do you see in Chicago as far as the migrant crisis? What I've seen a lot of residents, native residents who are there are very angry because Chicago already has a huge deficit. Obviously, there's many neighborhoods that are underserved, many problems, gangs, underfunded schools, and so on. And here you have all these migrants to come in. And I live right next to a sanctuary city with New York. I'm right next door. So I see a lot of the stuff that's going on there, and I've seen a lot of angry residents in Chicago. So, what is your experience as far as residents? Have you been able to get a scope of how people feel, or in relation to the news clips?
So I pride myself in having dual residence. I had up until maybe 3 months ago, 4 months ago, I still had my place in Chicago. But I also had my place in Texas, in Dallas, and
Okay.
then now I have something that's in Houston. But the thing about this that I found to be interesting is I have a sanctuary city, then I have a not sanctuary city.
Well,
So
you
my
you got
my
where they came from.
yeah, my governor is the one sending
Right.
migrants to my hometown.
Right.
So I found that to be a very interesting dynamic to watch both places. My understanding, so I'm not just speaking as, oh, this is what the residents is feeling. This is what I feel. In Chicago, I've been there my whole life. I've been fighting this my whole life. Where the hell they get that money from? Because they found a lot of money to house, to feed, to clothe. And the fact is that we have been fighting for better conditions where studies say poverty and underrepresentation leads to violence. Violence has been wrecking the South Side of Chicago my entire life. And we've been asking for basic minuscule resources as a black community to deal with it from an economic standpoint. There's never any money. Now all these illegals come over here. Now y'all got all the money. Give me my money. And they getting stuff that we like, dang, the amount is
Yeah.
crazy. I think when I did get a food stamp card, it was like $250 a month. 500. No, it wasn't 500. It was 250. They ain't never gave me no 300. I stopped getting welfare a long time ago. But for me,
Yeah.
it's very frustrating because I don't think that we're unhospitable or we're not gracious. But we, as a community, have been so deprived, we ain't got time for no new people. Go back over there and do it the right way. And I think it's because it's so many of y'all. Go back over there,
Right.
fill out the paperwork, marry somebody, get your green card, then come back.
Right.
And
Right.
so to see my governor in Texas shipping them there to protect the resources and the quality of life, I side with Texas. And that's
Right.
what you see, and it's going to possibly be what makes the Brandon Johnson a one-term mayor because you decided to take care of illegal immigrants and not residents who have been illegal as it relates to how they're treated as illegal the whole time.
Right. Well, that's such a great point, and I'm glad you said that because I try to tell people in relation to the election, whether you voted for Donald Trump or not. I talked to some people who, I was always a Democrat. You know what I mean? Like I'm pretty candid about the fact that this was the first time I didn't vote Democrat in my life. Now I try to tell a lot of friends of mine, particularly people who aren't from Chicago, I'm like, yo, you got to understand that illegal immigration is actually a real issue. And there's people who it doesn't really touch their lives. So they don't think it's a big deal. They kind of conflating this idea of illegal immigration with hatred or non-hatred for immigrants. And I'm like, they two different things, bruh. Mayor Adams, they just now stopping the program, but they were getting, I believe, $1,300 a month. People were mad because they like, man, like you just said, you got people who in poverty here and they never got anything near that. So you gotta say to yourself, this was a real national issue. And if it didn't affect you, I understand some people just can't understand things that don't touch them, right? But the reality is when I looked at Chicago, I said Chicago have enough issues. So I'm glad that you are certifying that too, because with all the problems Chicago already had, you have new people coming in, they being subsidized to live, and them kids are gonna have kids. Black people, we gonna be replaced. Your vote ain't gonna matter. So you may not think it matters, but your kid, I got two kids, two young kids. So the thing is, in 20, 25 years, if all the migrants have kids and they being subsidized to live here, they're gonna be citizens. And who do you think they're gonna go ahead and obviously vote for? So I looked at it as a replacement vote. And again, I understand when people are mad and they're yelling at Mayor Johnson, I'm like, you gotta understand at minimum why.
I mean, and then you got money when you can do what? Send some to somebody else. They
Fact.
sending money back home and still over here eating good. Like, damn. But
Yeah.
and I tell people all the time is you got to realize that the immigration conversation is not limited to Hispanics or Latinos. This is Haitians, it's Jamaicans, it's all kinds of immigrants that are coming here. So it's not that I don't like people who don't look like me, because it's people who look like me that say I said they need to go back to or come back later. But it is a conversation that cannot be had in and I can always parallel things to Dalton. It's just like Dalton. There are clear problems that cannot be resolved because people are not mature enough to talk across the aisle or be honest about all of the effects. We just want to
Okay.
keep a narrative for an end goal. So it looks like people hate immigrants who actually, if I saw one today, I would let them spend the night in my home a night or two. I
Yeah.
would feed them. And then I would call ICE and tell them, send them back. It's costing me too much.
I tell a lot of people that when you look at states, states are just a small microcosm of government when you look at the federal. So a lot of people are so focused on federal, but I tell people all the time, and as an activist, I just want you to let me know what you think. It's really about local and state government at the end of the day. You could be an activist fighting stuff on the federal level, but on the federal level, you fighting other different types of. It's a whole nother type of ball game. But I believe activism is much more prominent and effective on local and state government because that's where everything really happens. That's where lives are really affected.
I think that the local and state is the low hanging fruit, and it is often where the immediate and the most impactful results are had. So I would agree with that. But federally, you have to have, yeah, I would agree. It's more potent on the local and state level. Federally, you can get policy change. That takes a different skill set, a greater level of awareness, and longevity to where policy can matriculate down locally. However, it is the local that's going to affect you most. So, yeah, I would agree with that. And
Well,
so,